Senior, are you over 60? As a neurologist, I'm stunned. These 6 vitamins lower stroke risk fast and keep your brain sharp as you age. Number 1 is omega-3s, the natural blood thinner. Your brain loves. If you're over 60 and you're thinking about protecting your heart or your memory, there's one nutrient you may be forgetting: omega-3 fatty acids. And as a neurologist, I'll tell you this. If there's one supplement I wish more seniors understood, it's this one. Omega-3s aren't just for joints or brain fog. They're powerful, natural stroke fighters, especially 2 forms you may have heard of, EPA and DHA. These healthy fats are found in fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and anchovies, and they work in a way no other nutrient does. How? They do 3 critical things. They reduce inflammation inside your blood vessels. They make your blood less sticky, reducing the risk of clots. And they help keep your arteries flexible and open, improving blood flow to the brain. And since most strokes are caused by blood clots blocking narrowed arteries, omega-3s directly address that root cause. Let me introduce you to Mrs. Shirley James, 68 years old, retired school teacher. She walked into my office after a TIA, or mini stroke. It lasted only a few minutes, but it left her shaken and terrified it might happen again. Her blood work revealed something we often see in seniors: very low omega-3 levels, high triglycerides, and early signs of carotid plaque. She wasn't eating much seafood and had never taken a fish oil supplement. "I thought I was healthy," she said. "I walk every day, I don't smoke, I eat my veggies." We started simple: fatty fish 3 times a week, 1 daily omega-3 capsule with 1,000 milligrams of EPA and DHA. 3 months later, her inflammatory markers had gone down. Her triglycerides dropped 25%. And her carotid scan? No new progression. More importantly, she felt clearer, calmer, and sharper mentally. And the science backs this up. A review published in Stroke found that higher blood levels of DHA were associated with a significantly lower risk of ischemic stroke. Another meta-analysis showed omega-3s can lower stroke risk by improving lipid levels and vascular function. Yet despite all this, studies show that nearly 9 out of 10 people don't get enough omega-3s, especially older adults. That's a silent risk. If you're not eating fatty fish at least twice a week, or if you're unsure about your levels, you might consider a supplement. Here's what to look for: at least 500 to 1,000 milligrams of EPA plus DHA per dose. A clean, purified product tested by third parties. Look for IFOS, NSF, or USP, preferably in the triglyceride form. Easier for your body to absorb. Now, you might be wondering, is it safe if I'm on blood thinners? In moderate amounts, yes. In fact, omega-3s may actually help balance clotting risk. But always talk to your doctor before adding any new supplement, especially if you're taking meds like warfarin or apixaban. Bottom line, omega-3s support your heart, your brain, your circulation, and your long-term independence. So, if you're serious about stroke prevention, omega-3s shouldn't be optional. They should be foundational. Number 2 is magnesium, the stroke-preventing mineral nobody talks about. If you're over 60 and you've noticed your blood pressure rising, or your balance just isn't what it used to be, there's a quiet mineral your brain may be desperately missing: magnesium. You may have heard of magnesium for sleep or muscle cramps, but as a neurologist, I want you to understand something deeper. This mineral plays a powerful, often ignored role in stroke prevention, and most older adults are getting far too little. Magnesium keeps your arteries flexible, your blood pressure stable, and your heartbeat steady. It works behind the scenes to help blood vessels relax instead of constricting under pressure. And when you don't get enough, it can cause your pressure to spike, your circulation to suffer, and your stroke risk to quietly climb without warning. Let me tell you about Mr. Alan Cho, 74. He was healthy, active, and sharp. But something was off. He'd started waking up dizzy, his legs cramped every night. His blood pressure would shoot up for no clear reason. His doctor had tried adjusting medications, but nothing seemed to work. He told me, "I feel like my body's out of sync." So we checked something often overlooked, his magnesium levels. The results? Low normal, like many seniors I've seen. Not deficient by lab standards, but clearly not optimal for his heart or brain. We made two easy changes. He began eating more magnesium-rich foods like lentils, pumpkin seeds, spinach, and even a bit of dark chocolate. And we added a 200 milligram magnesium glycinate supplement daily. Easy on the stomach and well absorbed. Just 6 weeks later, Alan's pressure readings were more even. His balance improved. The cramps disappeared. He said, "It feels like my system is finally calming down, and he's not the only one." A meta-analysis of 7 major studies following over 240,000 adults found that every 100 milligram increase in magnesium from food was linked to an 8% lower risk of stroke, especially ischemic stroke. But here's the issue. Up to 70% of older adults don't meet the recommended intake. Why? Because magnesium hides in foods many people reduce with age: beans, seeds, leafy greens, whole grains. On top of that, common medications like diuretics, antacids, and blood pressure pills can drain your body's magnesium stores over time. Here's what I recommend to my patients. Aim to get 300 to 400 milligrams per day total, from food and supplements combined. Choose magnesium, glycinate, or citrate. They absorb well and are gentle on digestion. Stay away from cheap magnesium oxide. It's poorly absorbed and often causes stomach upset. And one important note, even if your blood test says your magnesium is normal, that doesn't mean you're in the clear. That test only reflects about 1% of the magnesium in your body. Most of it is stored in your bones and tissues. So, always listen to your symptoms: fatigue, pressure swings, muscle cramps, sleep trouble. They matter. If you're serious about protecting your brain, lowering your pressure, and preventing stroke, magnesium is one of the simplest and safest places to start. If you find this video helpful for your health, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Now, let's move on to the next step. Number 3 is folate, the vascular repair vitamin. If you're over 60 and you've never thought about folate, also known as vitamin B9, it's time to change that, because this humble B vitamin could quietly be protecting your brain from something far worse than forgetfulness: a stroke. Folate plays a powerful role in how your blood vessels heal, adapt, and stay healthy. One of its most important jobs is helping your body break down homocysteine, an amino acid that, when elevated, becomes toxic to your arteries. High homocysteine damages the inner lining of your blood vessels, stiffens your arteries, and accelerates plaque buildup, all of which lead to higher stroke risk, especially in seniors. Let me tell you about Miss Edna Price, 77, a retired librarian, lively, sharp, never smoked or drank. She did crossword puzzles every day and ate what she called a decent diet. Then one morning, her speech slurred slightly. She felt dizzy. She thought it was just fatigue, but her daughter insisted on taking her to the ER. The diagnosis? TIA, a mini stroke. Thankfully, it passed quickly, but we dug deeper. Her blood work revealed elevated homocysteine and low folate levels. She wasn't absorbing enough from her food, something common in seniors. We made a few targeted changes. She added folate-rich foods like lentils, asparagus, and leafy greens, and we started a methylfolate supplement, a more absorbable form of B9. Within 3 months, her homocysteine levels dropped over 20%, and a follow-up ultrasound showed improved arterial flexibility. Her memory felt sharper, her balance returned, and most importantly, there were no further events. Now, let's talk science. A number of large studies have linked high homocysteine to increased risk of both ischemic and hemorrhagic strokes. And while folate may not be a magic pill, a meta-analysis of over 37,000 patients showed that folic acid supplementation helped reduce stroke risk, especially in people with low baseline folate intake, like many older adults. So what's the takeaway? If you're over 60, especially if you eat fewer vegetables, take antacids, or have digestive issues, there's a good chance you're not getting enough folate. Here's what I recommend. Eat more natural folate sources: dark leafy greens, beans, citrus fruits, and avocado. If supplementing, choose methylfolate, not folic acid. Ideally 400 to 800 micrograms daily. Ask your doctor to check your homocysteine levels, especially if you've had a TIA, stroke, or unexplained dizziness. And here's a myth I want to bust. Folate is just for pregnant women. Number 4 is vitamin B12, the hidden deficiency that mimics a stroke. If you are over 60 and suddenly feel off balance, forgetful, or slower on your feet, don't ignore it. It may not be just aging. It might be a vitamin B12 deficiency, a silent threat that doesn't just affect your energy. It can quietly damage your brain and increase your risk of stroke. As a neurologist, I've seen patients misdiagnosed with early dementia, neuropathy, even mini strokes, when the real issue was low B12. It's far more common than people think, especially in seniors. Here's why. As we age, our stomach produces less acid, which makes it harder to absorb B12 from food. Add in medications like metformin, PPIs, or antacids, and you've got a perfect recipe for deficiency. And yet, it often goes undetected for years. Let me tell you about Mr. Frank Silva, 80, a retired school bus driver, proud, sharp, and independent. But over time, his balance got worse. He'd forget names. He was struggling to write checks. His daughter thought it might be the early stages of dementia. One morning, he nearly fell down the front steps. That's when they came to see me. We ran his labs. His vitamin B12 was critically low, and his homocysteine was high, a dangerous combo for the brain and blood vessels. We started him immediately on 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin, a highly absorbable form of B12. No injections, just a daily sublingual tablet. We also increased B12-rich foods, eggs, fish, fortified cereals, and made sure to reduce the antacids he was taking long-term. Within 6 weeks, his balance improved. His memory sharpened. Most importantly, his homocysteine levels dropped, and his follow-up MRI showed no new vascular damage. You see, B12 is essential not just for your nerves, but for keeping your blood vessels healthy. It helps lower homocysteine, a compound that, when elevated, increases your risk for atherosclerosis and stroke. And unlike other B vitamins, B12 stores can run dangerously low without causing obvious symptoms until it's too late. So let's talk numbers. Studies show that up to 15 to 20% of people over 65 are B12 deficient, and the risk increases with each passing decade. Low levels are linked to poor cognition, reduced mobility, and a higher incidence of stroke and vascular dementia. Here's what I recommend. Get your B12 levels checked, especially if you're experiencing memory issues, balance problems, or numbness. Use methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin. It's better absorbed and safer for long-term use. Supplement with 500 to 1,000 micrograms per day if you're deficient or at risk. And prioritize B12-rich foods like salmon, eggs, yogurt, and fortified grains. And here's a common myth. If I'm not vegan, I don't need B12 supplements. That's false. Even meat eaters can have trouble absorbing B12 as they age. It's not what you eat. It's what your body can absorb and use. If you've had a fall, felt foggy, or have unexplained changes in how your body moves or thinks, Don't wait. B12 deficiency is one of the few causes of neurological decline that's fully reversible, if caught in time. Not even close. While it is essential during pregnancy, it's just as important for vascular health in older adults, especially when it comes to brain protection. If you find this video helpful for your health, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Now, let's move on to the next step. Number 5 is potassium, the salt neutralizer for stroke protection. If you're over 60 and dealing with high blood pressure, your doctor may have told you to cut the salt, and that's good advice. But here's what they often forget to mention. To truly protect your heart and brain, it's not just about what you take out. It's about what you put in. And one mineral, in particular, could make all the difference: potassium. As a neurologist, I've seen it too often. Seniors watching their sodium but still struggling with pressure swings. Why? Because they're missing the key counterbalance: potassium. It's not just important. It's essential for preventing stroke. Potassium works by relaxing your blood vessel walls, improving circulation, and helping your kidneys flush out excess sodium. When your potassium levels are low, sodium has a stronger effect, tightening arteries and pushing your blood pressure dangerously high. Let me tell you about Mrs. Gladys Monroe, 73. She came to me with concerns about weird pressure jumps. One day it was 118/76. The next it was 165/90. She wasn't overweight. She wasn't stressed. But something was off. When we reviewed her diet, the problem became clear. She was eating low-sodium everything, but getting very little potassium. No beans, few fruits, no greens, hardly any sweet potatoes. Just toast, soup, crackers. A familiar pattern. We made small, targeted changes. She swapped her snacks for potassium-rich foods like bananas, lentils, avocados, and leafy greens, and added a homemade smoothie with spinach, yogurt, and frozen berries a few mornings a week. No pills, just food. Within a month, her pressure became more consistent. Her morning spikes were gone. She felt steadier, less tired. Her home monitor no longer scared her, and that peace of mind mattered just as much as the numbers. The science backs this up. A meta-analysis of 11 large studies found that people who consumed 1,600 milligrams more potassium per day had a 21% lower risk of stroke. Another study showed that postmenopausal women with the highest potassium intake had a 27% lower risk of ischemic stroke compared to those with the lowest. And yet, most older adults fall short. Why? Because modern diets are high in processed foods, loaded with sodium, stripped of potassium. Even low-sodium options don't help if you're not actively replacing what's missing. Here's what I recommend. Focus on potassium-rich whole foods: bananas, avocados, spinach, beans, yogurt, sweet potatoes. Smoothies or soups are great ways to load up without chewing through piles of produce. If you have kidney disease, talk to your doctor first. Your body may need a different approach. And a quick warning: do not self-dose potassium supplements. High-dose potassium pills can be dangerous, even fatal, if used incorrectly. That's why food is the safest and most effective source for most people. One more myth to clear up. My blood pressure is only a little high, so I'm fine. Even mild hypertension increases stroke risk over time. The earlier you act, the better. Number 6 is vitamin K2, the artery cleaner that protects your brain. If you're over 60 and your cholesterol looks fine, your pressure's under control, but you still worry about stroke, you're not alone. I've seen patients who do everything right and still end up with hard, narrowed arteries that quietly raise their stroke risk. And one missing nutrient may be to blame: vitamin K2. Now, you've probably heard of vitamin K before. It's known for helping blood clot. But that's vitamin K1. Vitamin K2, on the other hand, plays a completely different role. It acts like a traffic cop for calcium, making sure it goes to your bones, not your arteries. Because here's the problem. When calcium builds up in your blood vessels, it causes them to stiffen, narrow, and lose flexibility. That means less oxygen to your brain, and a greater chance that even a small clot could trigger a devastating stroke. Let me share the story of Mr. Charles Daniels, 71. A retired jazz guitarist. Vibrant, disciplined, careful with his health. His blood pressure and cholesterol were both in range, and he walked every morning. But during a routine scan, we found something shocking. 70% narrowing in his carotid artery. He was stunned. "I've done everything right," he said. When we reviewed his diet, I noticed something. Almost no vitamin K2. No fermented foods, very little dairy fat, no organ meats, some of the richest sources of K2. We changed that. He added natto, a fermented soy dish, twice a week. Started eating hard cheeses, pasture-raised eggs, and a few servings of leafy greens. And we added a 90 microgram vitamin K, 2mK, 7 supplement, the form that stays active in the body the longest 6 months later. His follow-up scan showed reduced arterial stiffness and no further progression of the blockage. His neurologist said, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." And here's what science says. Research shows that low K2 intake is linked to increased arterial calcification and higher risk of cardiovascular events, including stroke. In contrast, adequate K2 helps keep arteries flexible, reduces calcium buildup, and supports long-term vascular health. But here's the catch. Most multivitamins don't include vitamin K2, and it's not the same as K1, which is found in leafy greens. K2 is found in fermented foods, aged cheeses, egg yolks, and certain supplements. Here is what I recommend for older adults. Add K2-rich foods like Gouda, brie, egg yolks, liver, or natto. Consider a MK7 form supplement of K2, between 90 to 180 micrograms per day, if your diet is low in those foods. And if you're taking blood thinners like warfarin, always consult your doctor first before changing K intake. And here's a myth I want to bust. Vitamin K causes clots. Not exactly. K1 helps your blood clot, yes, but K2 helps direct calcium away from your arteries. It's not about thickening your blood. It's about cleaning your pipes. If you've had a stroke, a TIA, or been told you have arterial calcification, vitamin K2 might be the missing piece your body's been waiting for.